Sales has a bad rap, and justifiably so. Over the last 70 years, it's been filled with the same kind of people. Overage, middle-sized men, half balding, wearing gaudy gold jewelry and terribly fitted clothing, stains all over. They have cracks and lines in their faces from smirking over decades on how they pulled one over on their clients. And they always wear haven't been polished in years shoes. Even as you think about them, the smell, just this inauthenticity starts to strike your senses. And all they used to do for 70 years was lie to people. That's how they sold. It was the most dishonorable, dirty, disgusting way of making a living, truly. But just like the story of an asteroid hitting the world and making dinosaurs go extinct, there has been a new cataclysmic event in the world, and it's called the information era. And over the last decade, the information age has met a beautiful catalyst called the internet. And when you mix the two together, you get an amazing outcome. Information for everyone, everywhere, all the time. Thus, no more lying. And no more lying to sell. Old sales reps meet asteroid. And begins a new era of sales, a new way of selling. Welcome to The Honorable Close. I started my sales journey over a decade ago, and I started selling cars. And if you ever want to know what it's like to sell cars, go watch the movie Car Dogs. It is the most hysterical movie that people think Hollywood just dramatized, but everything in it's accurate. I remember putting people in trunks, closing the trunks, and getting bonus pay for what we call trunking people. I remember doing just dirty things at the table, I'll put it that way, and doing what really was, at the end of the day, not honorable selling. But that's the stigma we're fighting, and that's what we can never come close to. If we even teeter the line of being dishonorable, then we are no better than the sales reps in Car Dogs, the sales reps that I personally once came close to being. I still remember when my first ethical line was challenged, when I dropped my morals for sales. Because you don't become a dishonorable sales rep, unethical sales rep overnight. It comes in slow changes. There's no cataclysmic event where you're just like, you know what, I want to be dishonorable. It chips away at you. And over the years, you look down one day and just realize my shoes are stained and I am everything that I swore I never was going to be. I still remember the first time my ethics were ever challenged. And it happens to pretty much every car salesperson in the same way. Prospect calls in and says, hey, I'm looking for X car. If you guys have it, I can come in today. And as a sales rep, you're like, sweet. And so I say, cool, let me go check the inventory. I'll be back in a second. It's cool if I put you on hold, right? And I remember walking over and my sales manager is sitting in the corner and there's a whiteboard right behind him. And on the whiteboard, there's little magnetic tiles. Each magnetic tile represents a car and it has the car model, the car year, interior and exterior color. And I'm scanning, I'm looking for, I don't know what the car was, but I'm looking for X car. And he sees me looking and he says, what are you looking for? And I say, I have someone on the phone. They're looking for X. If we have it, they can come in today. He doesn't even look at the board. He says, great, tell him we have it. And I was like, oh, I don't see it. Has it not been marked yet? It's not labeled? He's like, just tell him we have it. And I walk over and I'm thinking to myself, it's probably just not on the board yet. You know, it's probably just getting logged or something. And I'm lying to myself. Deep down, I know we don't have this fucking car. But I pick up the phone and I say, hey, great news. We got it. When can you come in? And the guy says, awesome. I'm an hour and a half away. I'm going to leave in the next 30, so I'll be there in like 2-3 hours. I might stop for lunch. And I remember hanging up the phone and just thinking to myself, this guy's about to come in 3 hours. I don't have the fucking car to show him. And I know something about taking an entire day. That guy was there for the entire day. And I'm sure you know where this goes, but I remember seeing a car pull up. The guy walks in and says, I'm looking for Paul. And he says, great, where's the car? And I say, I'm sorry, before you came in, someone came in and picked it up. It's like the cliche salesperson line in car sales. But everyone in that world, that was the first time that my ethics were challenged. And I lost. I did not win that challenge. And I don't know if you can see, I still feel dirty and grimy knowing I even did that. That was 11, 12 years ago and still carries with me. But in the world of car sales, that's like a normal thing. That's not by any means a even it's not something that carries any weight of being dishonorable in car sales, because that's how dishonorable sales used to be. And months, probably a year went by after that, and things got worse, candidly. I remember one day having a moment, I forget what caused it, but just having a moment where I thought to myself, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And it was like, I remember that I was drinking coffee and I was sitting at a desk, and I just like sank into my desk and I thought, what am I doing? And I think it was just years of chipping away at my soul finally got to me in this random, probably Tuesday morning as I'm drinking coffee, probably looking at Facebook at the time. What am I doing with my life? And almost minutes after I had that realization, I got a call. I remember prospect calls in. It's actually, a sales manager transfers a call to me. And I pick it up, and before I pick it up, he gave me a quick little memo. Hey, this girl's looking for this car. Tell her we have it. Same exact thing that happened a year prior to, and probably many times in between. And I pick up the phone, and her name is Andrea. I still remember her last name. I'm not going to say it, of course, but she's looking for a pre-owned A7, Audi A7. And she's like, I love this color. I'm so excited that you guys have it. No one has this car. And I'm looking at the inventory list. And this doesn't sound like a big thing. This sounds like the most minimal effort of being a decent human that you could be. But I just told her the truth. It's like, hey, Andrew, we don't have that car. I don't know where the miscommunication was. I'm sorry if Alan told you that we did, but I don't see that on the list. And she was like really taken back for a second because she was so excited. And I remember a couple seconds of silence go by, and at the time I didn't know how to handle silence. It's something that we're going to go over plenty in this series. But I didn't know what to do, and so I just kind of filled the void. And I said, we have this and this in stock. And I told her what I liked about the one A7 and this other one, and what was better and what was worse. And I just kind of chatted for 30 seconds on what we did have. And again, there was silence, and she was just listening. I don't think she said a single word for like a minute or two after I told her we don't have that car. And I just talked for 30 seconds, and she said, okay, great, I'm going to come in anyway. And now I was taken back. I was like, because when I told her, hey, listen, we don't have the car, I did not expect her to say anything other than great, like goodbye. But she said, I'm coming in. And I still remember, fast forward 2 days, I'm at her office. I'm actually delivering her new car to her. She got an A7, one of the ones that we did have on the lot. And I had a moment, she's signing the last paper, and I'm like, hey, you called in asking for this, and you're taking this. Why'd you come in? And she just flat out looked at me and said, because I felt like I could trust you. I felt like I could trust you because you told me the truth, even when it didn't benefit you. And I still remember, again, guys, I know this sounds like the most minimal amount of effort it takes to be a decent human being, but in the world of car sales, especially 12-ish years ago, this was cataclysmic. When I told my sales manager that I told her we didn't have that car in, I got reamed. Telling the truth was not a common thing. And so I still feel how dirty it was to lie to people. And I still feel the relief that I had when I first did a sale, the ethical and the honorable way. And that's what this entire video is going to be. This entire lesson is about making sure that you guys learn from my mistakes and learn from what I've done well and take that. But sales would not be sales if it was just about being ethical and honorable. In this story, let's call my old way of selling, my dishonorable way, let's call it the classical era. Because here's the catch. Andrea was an anomaly. After I told the truth, it felt so good that I thought, I'm just going to be, from here on out, I'm going to be moral. I'm going to be ethical. If it worked with Andrea, it's going to work. And the next 6, 8, maybe even 12 months, I didn't sell shit. I had nothing left. Every other rep is fucking outpacing me because they're just getting people in from lying and then doing all the dirty swindling that you can do in car sales to actually get people to look at numbers and buy. But once I said I'm going to go ethical, I had nothing left in the arsenal. I couldn't get people into the dealership. When people were at the dealership, I didn't know how to actually get them to want to buy a car. It's like I was a mechanic and I didn't have a single tool to work on the cars anymore. I had nothing. Man to man, it's really, really scary to live life hoping that people buy shit instead of knowing that you have the ability to persuade people to do it. I was constantly living for this year in this weird middle ground where I thought I was being ethical and I thought I was being honorable, but I was also broke. And I remember, making commission checks of literally $0. And every sales rep I was last on the leaderboard. Everyone was pacing me. Terrible sales reps that I knew I was better than. They were pacing me. They were beating me. And in the era or the storyline of becoming an honorable closer, this one area is where most sales reps fall out. Because going from unethical to ethical, it's not uncommon. You see that in the old world of sales. But when you see that, what you often see is people struggle with what I struggled with, not selling. And instead of realizing that they can actually take control of the sales process and do everything that we're going to talk about in this series, they just think, I'm not selling because I'm not lying. And they think that the only way to sell is to lie. And so they just leave. They drop out of sales. They get out of an amazing career opportunity because they think that they have to be unethical in order to succeed. And I'm here to tell you guys today that you don't. We can be honorable, ethical sales reps and crush it and help people and make killer amounts of money while doing it. It's an amazing career, and I'm so excited for you guys to be looking at it. And in the spirit of complete honesty, I probably would have been one of the sales reps that burned out and left the industry. I was really close. I mean, I was dirt broke, living with my parents, couldn't go out and eat because I had nothing to pay for checks. When I went to dinner with my friends, I had my friends covering dinner checks for me. I was in a really bad spot, and I was thinking to myself, this isn't going to work. I gotta get into something else. If I'm working, I gotta make money. And I was so close to leaving. I still remember thinking as I'm in the dealership, knowing that I've worked a couple of months at some points for just a few $100s in the States, and just thinking to myself, I can't do this. And 1 week, there was a sales rep. We had a new sales rep come to the dealership, and he was literally there for 1 week. And I didn't like him. This guy was your cliche, disgusting sales rep. Everything I mentioned earlier, oversized, middle-aged, half balding, just wore disgusting clothing, stains all over, had dip in his cheek constantly, shoes were beat to shit, smoked like crazy. This is the kind of guy, I'm not kidding, that would be doing cocaine off a Bible. That's the kind of sales rep we're talking about. And he was so poorly spoken, but he was top on the leaderboard in that 1 week that he was there. And he came to me, and you could see that I was trying to do things differently. It's like he recognized the spirit in me of trying to do good. And he said, in his poor broken English, you're so focused on doing good that you're doing bad because you're letting your customers leave and go to dealerships where they're going to work with people like me. I'm not kidding. This was probably the only conversation I ever had with the guy, but that one conversation made me realize that me trying to be ethical, me trying to be honorable, me trying to do the good thing was actually almost doing the exact same thing I was trying to avoid. And that one conversation with that one guy who was in my life for quite literally 1 week, I don't even remember his name. That conversation sent me into a new chapter of life. Call it the Renaissance, because I realized that there was either one of two truths. One being that sales was just unethical and dishonorable. Or one being, and this is the one most people can swallow, that I just sucked at it. And I've always been the kind of person to realize or to think to myself, if I'm not doing well, it's not probably the thing that other people can succeed in. It's probably the fact that I'm not doing it well because I suck at it. So I picked that truth. And it sent me into a new chapter of life. And I spent years just working on perfecting the craft, reading every sales book out there, buying hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point of sales programs, mentorships, you name it, I've done it. For the last 10 years, I've led every leaderboard of every sales team I've ever been on, and I did it while sleeping well at night and knowing that I was making a positive impact in the world. I learned the difference between manipulation and problem diagnosis. I learned the difference between closing and selling and pushing. Now, to bring this to modern day, a lot's changed since the car days over 10 years ago, and I truly have mastered the art of selling. I've gotten very good at the game of persuasion and having conversations with people that change their outlook on how they want to go about solving a problem. And with that skill comes a really big responsibility to be ethical, to not be self-serving. If you've ever been in any kind of martial arts or Krav Maga, in my first lesson of Krav Maga, I still remember the instructor saying, if you see someone on the street that can't defend themselves, then it's your responsibility to, because you can. And it's the same with selling. As we get into deeper phases of this series and you start to understand persuasion and psychological tactics and really just the art of selling, you'll realize that you have a massive ability to sway people's decisions, life-changing decisions sometimes, and you can sway them for better or worse. And you have a moral obligation as a good human being to do right by that, to not be self-serving, again, to be ethical, to be honorable. And your moral compass, your ethical line will be tested just like mine was over 10 years ago when that prospect called and said, do you have this car in stock? But yours might look different. Yours might be that you're low on sales numbers and you're behind KPI or projections for the week or for the month, and you have a prospect that you know would buy, but you also know they're not the right fit for your product or service. And you're gonna have to make that decision of whether or not you do the ethical thing or whether you do the self-serving thing. Or it could be larger than that. And it could be that one day you realize the company you're selling for isn't fulfilling on its promises and it's screwing its clients. And the second or day that you recognize that, you have an obligation to either continue with wrongdoing or separate yourself from it. And every time your compass is challenged, I promise it's only going to get harder and harder and harder to be ethical. And so the first lesson of this entire series on being an honorable closer is not by accident. And in this first module of this series, I wanted to start by saying I ask of two promises from you. The first promise I ask of you is that as you go through this series and you get better at the game of persuasion, you master the art of selling, you have to be diligent on making sure that you are uncompromisingly ethical and honorable. And the reason I need you to make that promise is because in 5 or 10 years, I don't want companies to only know that Educate creates the best sales reps in the space, but I want the world to know that Educate creates the most honorable sales reps in the space. Me asking this promise of you is also me being self-serving, because I personally want to know that all the knowledge I'm sharing is going to help make the world a better place. It's going to help impact the world in a positive way, not just line some pockets and not screw people in the process. See, throughout this entire series, I'm going to be teaching you how to close ethically and honorably. I'm going to be teaching you how to guide people to decisions rather than manipulating them. I'm going to teach you how to problem diagnose rather than sell, and how to close rather than push. See, throughout this series, I'm going to teach you everything I know on how to be a top-tier sales rep while being ethical. I will teach you how to guide people to decisions rather than manipulate. I'll teach you how to problem diagnose rather than sell. I'll teach you how to close rather than push. And I'll show you exactly how to look at companies and see if they're ethical or unethical. I'll show you the red flags. I'll show you the green flags. I'll show you everything to look for, and I'll teach you everything I know. But at the end of the day, the one decision you have to make for yourself, and it ultimately comes down to you, is whether or not being diligent on being uncompromisingly ethical is a priority to you. So my promise, the one promise I will ask of today, one of the two promises I will ask of in this entire series, is that you promise to me that it is. My name is Paul Daly, and I have lived with the dinosaurs. I have made it out alive, and I have flourished since the asteroid hit. Throughout this series, we're gonna work on every single thing from the nuances of sales to the macros of sales, but every single thing will always flow back to making sure that we do this in a way that positively changes the world, has an impact on the world, and fights the stigma of being one of those old car sales dog sales reps. I'm gonna teach you how to make $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month in sales, but all with the underlying principle of remaining ethical and remaining honorable. I'm excited to work with you throughout the series. I will see you in the next lesson. Until then, happy hunting.